Right then, so today we're going to be changing the coilovers and loads of other stuff basically on my EP3 Civic Type R. We've got the Yellow Speed Dynamic Pro Sport coilovers. These are 33 away adjustable and just good for the sort of mid-range sort of price coilover. We don't really know what we're getting into really because we've never done coilovers before. We've got loads of other bits to change, so let's just do it and see what happens. Right, so as you can see, we've jacked up the front of the car and we've chocked the back wheels as well. You can see here that I've marked off each coilover sort of measuring points. We measured the standard suspension from the top of the wheel to the bottom side of the wheel arch, and we're going to basically, I'm looking to go 30mm down, so we'll take 30mm off of the measurement that's on each of these corners, and then hopefully it should be all good. So as well as doing the suspension up the front, we're going to change the track rod ends, because on my Honda service they said they were the bushings were perish and blah blah blah. And then we're going to swap out the front lower control arm bushings as well, and then there's also a ball joint down here, down under here, that we're going to replace as well, because they all came up on the Honda service I had a couple of weeks ago. So we've got the driver's side coilover ready to go in soon, but this is the size difference. Pretty big difference between stock and this Yellow Speed coilover. Right, so as you can see it's getting dark, so we're calling it on day one. Got one coilover in, but not the track rod ends not attached and stuff like that, because we've got loads of other bits to pull off. What I'll do tomorrow is I'll run through all the things I've actually got and that's actually going on this car, because it's not just coilovers. So catch up with us tomorrow and hopefully we get a bit more done. So, day two, as you can see, pretty cold. I think it's about, well, let's see, I think it's 1 degree. Yeah, 1 degree. So, but I thought I'd basically run through the parts I've got that are going on this. So, we've obviously got the Yellow Speed coilovers, which we are sort of halfway-ish through doing. We've then got Tegra front anti-roll bar drop links to replace the current ones. We've got the bushes for the lower control arms, got some rear lower control arms in red, hard race front ball joints, they're just an OEM replacement. Got track rod ends, which we've done. Then we've got Progress front and rear anti-roll bar kits, so that's like pollybushed, the bushings in there, and then thicker anti-roll bars. So we've got 27mm on the front and then 24 on the back, so it's a lot thicker than standard. So what I'll do is, as we get to those points, I'll pull off the like the OEM part and then show you the difference between that and the parts we've got. Right, so we've fitted the two front coilovers. We've got nothing attached yet, so we're running full Jesse's Jetta with no front calipers. Yeah, nothing's attached apart from the strut, so we're just going to lower it down just to check the height and then cross-reference that off with the standard height that we've marked and see how much lower it is from this first go really. We haven't changed the height or anything from what they came out of the box, so it could be way out, I don't really know. It's definitely lower. We're not anywhere near rubbing, so right, let's get some measurements. So we're basically measuring from here on the wheel up to basically the underside of the fender. So it started it with a standard suspension at 111mm. It is now 94. So that is a pretty good drop, but still not 30mm, so we're probably going to go a bit lower. But we'll see once we've stuck the rears on and everything, we can have a proper look at it all. Right, so as you can see, we've dropped the wheel out again, so left the coilover up there, but because we're replacing the lower ball joints, we've pulled the axle away from the hub, so we've got the brake disc and everything all as one piece away from the car. So we're basically replacing what goes in here. While we're here as well, we're also going to be taking out the front anti-roll bar. So we've already taken out the drop link there, so we're just going to pull that whole thing out at some point as well. But I'll just show you quickly the ball joint that's out now. So here's the hub away from the drive shaft. So basically this is this is what we're replacing. So we used the ball joint fork to get it out, and we got new ones of these from Hard Race that we need to put in. So now that we've got all of those bits out of the way, we're going to pull the front lower control arms out, because we've got to get those polybushed as well. So we're going to take both those and the ball joint to a shop to get them to do it, because they've got a hydraulic press and stuff, so it's going to be easier for them to do it than us.
6 hours later.
Right, so we're having problems with the front ball joint, so we've left that in WD-40 to soak, and meanwhile we've moved on to the rear. So we've taken the rear wheel off, and then basically we've got quite a few bits to change. So I've got these new lower control arms in red because it looks cool, and then we've got a new anti-roll bar, and this comes with drop links and all the hardware and everything that we need to fit that. So basically we're getting on with that. And then also what I've done in the back is, while we're doing the suspension, popped off these 2 panels in the back so that we can get to the top of the suspension. So it's just 2 bolts, and those should drop out once we get to that. Also, if you're looking to remove the standard bolts out of the back of the lower control arms, you'll need this special tool. It's like a 10-star Honda only piece. Basically that code in the top should mean you find it. So that tool you need to get these bolts off, there's 3 here, and then there's obviously 3 on the other side. So yeah, I need to get that tool. I think it was about £8 or something. It's kind of annoying, but we're basically going to replace that with normal hardware, so we don't need to use these ones again. Right, so end of day 2, we're having some proper issues with the front ball joint and actually the 2 bolts on the underside of the suspension on the rear, so we can't get any of those 3 out at the moment. What we're going to do is soak them overnight with WD-40. We've got the lower control arms out and the rear anti-roll bar. I'll show you those in comparison to the new stuff when we actually get around to fitting it, because at the moment those are in the way of us getting a good lever on getting the suspension out. So continuing again tomorrow, we'll see what happens and how far we get again tomorrow. Right, day 3, we got it out, but it kind of broke. Let me show you what I mean. So as you can see, we got them both out, but look here, we kind of broke the ball joint off. So we got some of it in there, some of it there. This is what it should be like. But basically we're going to take all of this, the new ball joints and the new bushes for in here, all off to a shop to get them to do it, because there's no way we're getting that out, and obviously we're going to do this anyway. Right then, so update, we got both of the rear struts out. Those bolts took ages to get out from the angle that we could get them out at, but here's the difference between the Yellow Speed Coilover and the one we've just taken out. So next up is putting these bad boys in. So basically we're using the old hardware from the standard suspension, the bolt that goes on the bottom of the coilover. We're reusing that, so what we're going to do to stop it catching or fouling or anything, or prevent it from, we're going to clean it up with a wire brush. Hopefully that means these will go in and out a bit easier, because we're probably going to have to pull the coilovers out and lower them and stuff, and the easier that is, the easier the job's going to be. So I'm going to get on with this. So we've got both rears in, so this is the passenger side. Obviously the driver side looks exactly the same, so there's no point in me showing you that. So yeah, that's it in here. I'll show you on top now to see what it looks like from the top. And there it is on top. So it's just those 2 bolts either side, and then yeah, we haven't set the dampening settings yet. There is a standard dampening setting, but I can't really remember what that is. I'll have a look anyway, and we'll do that before we lower the car back down. But now it is onto the rear lower control arms and rear anti-roll bars. So here is the rear anti-roll bar, the progress one, obviously this shiny one up here. So we put this brace across first, and then we'll mount all the stuff to it. So we've got the drop links here, just need to measure those to get them the same. But yeah, this is the difference in thickness from the OEM. Pretty big difference. And then obviously while we're doing that as well, here's the difference in lower control arms. I mean, the red just looks cool, so. so we've basically fitted everything as far as we can right now. So we can't fit the 3 bolts in here because the car's just up too high, and we also can't fit the drop links. So what we're going to do is, while the car's up this height, we're going to do the front anti-roll bar, and then once we've done that, we'll lower the rear and then attach these parts once the car's on the ground on the rear. Right, so we got the front anti-roll bar out. Looks like this one, actually, the standard one, has taken a bit of a knock, because that is definitely not straight. I kind of just did this as like a, while we're pulling stuff off, so I might as well replace it now thing, but it looks like that was probably a good decision, because that is pretty bent. So we've also got some drop link replacements for these, because these are pretty ruined, and then, you know, just new stuff going on. New stuff is always good. So yeah, let's get this in.
12 seconds later.
Right, so we've got the new anti-roll bar in. So yeah, basically you have to drop the 3 bolt where the cap joins the B pipe, and then unplug the 2 oxygen sensors to be able to get the old one out and this one in, and then this basically tucks over the top in the middle here, over the top, and then they bolt in just here with some new hardware, new pollybushes and stuff, so should be much better. The weight difference between this one and the standard one is insane, so we should feel some pretty big differences. Right, so now we've got that piece in, we're gonna head to the back and move on to dropping these down. Gotta get this down on the floor so that we can get in the bolts, as I said earlier, so let's get on with doing that. Right, so end of day 3, we have found that when we lower the car, because we haven't got those 3 bolts in for the lower control, and we found that as we lower the car, the camber comes out on top, so it actually gets further away. So what we're gonna have to do is unbolt the bottom of the suspension tomorrow, probably first thing, and that means we'll then be able to lift it up and then hopefully thread those 3 bolts through on each side, and then put the suspension back in and then lower it and see what the rear ride height is like. Once we've done that, we're sort of waiting for the shop to come back saying that they finished doing the bushings and the lower ball joints, so we haven't heard anything today. We'll see tomorrow, hopefully they get it done and we can move on from there as well. Right, so we managed to get these bolts in eventually, up here and over there. We ended up not needing to take out the struts, but we took one out because that's what we thought we had to do, and then we realised that all we had to do was pull the hub towards us and then it would have just slipped in, so we did that, and now we got all of those in, so we put the strut back in and everything, so we're now ready to lower the car on the rear for the first time to see the height. So let's do that. Ooh. Tape measure. So that is 81, which is actually 30mm, so not having to take the suspension off again to change the height is amazing. We'll see, obviously the springs have got to settle and stuff over about a week or whatever, so we'll see after that sort of time, but hopefully that means we can just tighten up all the locking nuts and then that is done on the rear. Right, so we've pulled the coilover back out. We've now adjusted the height of this one. So we measured, it was 13mm difference between what it was set at originally to how much lower I wanted to go. So we've basically measured 13mm up this way, then spun these 2 rings. The good thing with this coilover is these spring rates are set, so you don't change this. So changing the ride height doesn't change the spring. So we've come up 13mm and now we're gonna fit it back on the car basically, and hopefully that is 30mm lower and we shouldn't need to pull this out again. So we've got the coilover back in. We're kind of waiting for the shop to get back to us with those parts, so there's nothing really we can do until they come back. So what we're gonna do is just clean up the threads on all the bolts that we need to use again for the lower control arm. So that bolt there and the bolt that goes in here and stuff like that, just to make sure that stuff's clean so that when we put it all back together it's not as taxing on us. Hi guys, so I'm just editing this video and I realised that it is way too long to be put into one whole long video. Well, I could have done it, but it's just you guys would have got really bored, so I've decided to split into 2. I've also not filmed outros. So hindsight is a wonderful thing, and all of the things you have seen in terms of adjusting the height and everything you'll see in the next video. It's obviously wrong and you guys are probably screaming at the screen saying, like, what the hell are you doing, blah blah blah. I just thought, yeah, just let you know this is part 1. Part 2 will be out in a bit. Yeah, so look out for that, and catch you guys in the next video.